Did you know America's interstate highways were built for more than just road trips? When President Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, it wasn't just about convenience. The real urgency was national defense. Eisenhower, inspired by Germany's Autobahn, wanted highways that could move troops and supplies fast in case of a Soviet attack. The Cold War's shadow meant highways were designed wide and straight for military convoys, and some stretches could even double as emergency runways. This wasn't just about cars and commerce, it was about preparing for war on American soil. The Cold War shaped even the roads beneath our wheels, blending everyday life with military strategy. The highways we use today are a legacy of that era's anxiety and planning. Next time you're on the interstate, remember, you're driving on a Cold War artifact. These roads connect cities, but they were also built to defend them. The project was one of the largest in U.S. history, rooted in Cold War fears. The highways are a reminder of how global rivalry shaped daily American life. They're more than roads. They're symbols of a divided world. The Cold War's influence reached into every corner of American society. Even our infrastructure was designed with defense in mind. The story of the highways is just the start of how the Cold War transformed America. Let's look at how this rivalry shaped U.S. policy, culture, and more. The Cold War's first big turning point? The Truman Doctrine of 1947. President Truman pledged U.S. support for any democracy threatened by authoritarianism, code for stopping Soviet communism. This was a dramatic shift. America would now intervene globally, not just defend its own borders. The immediate crisis was in Greece and Turkey, where communism threatened to spread. Truman asked Congress for $400 million in aid, framing it as a fight between freedom and oppression. This containment policy became the backbone of U.S. foreign policy for decades. It led to massive aid programs like the Marshall Plan and military alliances like NATO. The U.S. now had to maintain a powerful military, ready to act worldwide. The Truman Doctrine drew a line. The U.S. would oppose communism anywhere. This commitment set the stage for a long, costly global rivalry. The world was divided into two camps, and America was all in. The Cold War had officially begun. The Cold War's fear wasn't just overseas, it gripped America itself. Senator Joseph McCarthy fueled a nationwide panic, claiming communists had infiltrated the government. Accusations alone could destroy careers, even without proof. Televised hearings and blacklists targeted government workers, artists, and especially Hollywood. Free speech suffered as people became afraid to express dissenting views. The government launched loyalty programs and background checks on millions of workers. The FBI, led by J. Edgar Hoover, expanded surveillance, creating a climate of suspicion. The fear, Soviet spies could be anywhere, undermining America from within. McCarthy's power collapsed after his bullying tactics were exposed on live TV, but the damage was done. Civil liberties were eroded, and paranoia lingered. McCarthyism showed how fear could turn Americans against each other. The fight against communism threatened the freedoms it claimed to protect. The scars of this era shaped American society for years. The Cold War's battle lines ran right through American homes. The Cold War brought a terrifying new reality: nuclear weapons. After WPU, the U.S. was the only nuclear power, until the Soviets tested their own bomb in 1949. An arms race began, with both sides building ever more powerful weapons. The logic of mutually assured destruction meant any nuclear attack would end in total annihilation. For Americans, the threat was constant. Schools held duck and cover drills, and families built fallout shelters. Civil defense became part of daily life, even if it offered little real protection. The arms race fueled massive military spending and created the military-industrial complex. Defense contractors and the Pentagon became powerful forces in the economy. The nuclear shadow shaped U.S. policy, budgets, and everyday fears. The world lived on edge, knowing a single mistake could mean disaster. The arms race defined the Cold War's danger and anxiety. It was a time when the threat of total destruction was always present. The bomb's shadow changed how Americans saw the world and themselves. The Cold War wasn't just fought on Earth, it reached into space. In 1957, the Soviet launch of Sputnik shocked Americans and sparked the space race. Suddenly, the US feared it was falling behind in science and technology. The government responded fast, launching Explorer 1 and creating NASA in 1958. Space became a new front for Cold War rivalry, a contest for prestige and power. The Soviets scored again with Yuri Gagarin, the first human in orbit. President Kennedy raised the stakes, vowing to land a man on the moon by decade's end. The Apollo program mobilized the nation's talent and resources. In 1969, Neil Armstrong's moon landing was a triumph watched worldwide. The space race drove innovation in technology, science, and education. It was a peaceful competition, but the stakes felt existential. The moon landing was more than a victory. It was proof of American resolve. The Cold War's race to space changed the world forever. Sputnik's launch didn't just start the space race, it sparked an education revolution. Americans feared they were falling behind in science and math. Congress responded with the National Defense Education Act of 1958, pouring money into schools and scholarships. The goal trained a new generation of scientists, engineers, and linguists to outpace the Soviets. Science and math classes became tougher, and gifted students were pushed toward high-tech careers. The federal government took a bigger role in shaping what kids learned, all in the name of national security. The result? More students went to college and research boomed. The Cold War's pressure led to lasting investments in education and technology. Fear of falling behind became a catalyst for progress. The classroom became a Cold War battleground. America's future was being built one student at a time. The Cold War shaped American culture too, by making conformity the norm. With communism as the enemy, being American meant embracing capitalism, religion, and family values. Suburban life was idealized, and anyone who stood out risked suspicion. Dissent was dangerous. Artists and thinkers often self-censored. The government promoted a wholesome image at home and abroad, using culture as a weapon, but pressure to fit in sparked a backlash. The Beat Generation and Civil Rights Movement challenged the era's rigid expectations. By the 1960s, youth counterculture rejected many Cold War values. Ironically, the push for conformity planted seeds of rebellion. The Cold War's cultural climate was tense, but it also inspired change. The struggle to define American identity shaped a generation. The Cold War wasn't fought on battlefields, but it was expensive. Decades of high military spending fueled the arms race and global deployments. Defense budgets boosted industries and created jobs, especially in places like California and Texas. But critics argued that money for weapons meant less for schools, healthcare, and cities. The guns versus butter debate shaped politics for generations. The U.S. also paid in blood. Proxy wars in Korea and Vietnam cost thousands of lives. These conflicts divided Americans and eroded trust in government. The military-industrial complex became a permanent force in the economy. The Cold War's price was measured in dollars, lives, and social tension. The legacy of this spending still shapes America today. The true cost of the Cold War went far beyond the battlefield. The Cold War ended in 1991, but its legacy is everywhere. America's global alliances, military power, and interventionist policies all trace back to this era. Investments in science and technology fueled the digital revolution and the internet. The interstate highways we drive and the research universities we rely on are Cold War legacies. The era also left a powerful national security state and ongoing debates about freedom versus security. The Cold War's us versus them mindset still shapes foreign policy and politics. Understanding this history helps explain today's world, from global conflicts to civil liberties debates. The Cold War drove innovation, but also left scars. Its influence is woven into daily American life. The world of 2025 is built on Cold War foundations. To understand our present, we must remember this long, twilight struggle.